Hi, I'm Heather Patterson, and you are watching Happier at Work. This week, I'd like to share with you a book review. This book review is a little different. It's both personal and work-related. And before I even get into the actual book, I want to share that this author, Brene Brown, her work has transformed my life. It started with her amazing TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. A friend of mine randomly recommended it, and so many light bulbs just started going off. Then I read her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. I devoured it on a plane ride, and that completely changed my life. And I just keep consuming her information, her material, her research, her talks, and am always transformed. I always find some value out of it. So I want to share with you a book that she wrote. Well, it's been out a couple years now, but I wanted to share it with you today. It's Daring Greatly. Daring Greatly. Here's what the book looks like. Bring it in a little bit for you. Daring Greatly. So why do I love this book, and why do I think you will too? Why should you read it? I found this paragraph in the front, in the foreword, that really helps sum it up. So let me read it to you briefly. It says, vulnerability is not weakness, and the uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure we face every day are not optional. Our only choice is a question of engagement. Our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure of our fear and disconnection. That statement right there, a measure of our fear and disconnection, is exactly what we talk about here on this channel. If you've watched a single video, you know that a critical ingredient to being happy at work is to have connection, to have relationships with others. So it might not appear like this is a work-related book on the surface, but truly, truly it is. Now, in the first few chapters of the book, Brene lays a beautiful foundation about what vulnerability is, what fear is, shame, guilt, embarrassment, some of these things that are really dark that we don't really want to talk about a whole lot. Now, this is huge for me. I have experienced a lot of shame. I remember, and especially at work, I remember one day, I was in what Brene would call a shame storm, right? The day before, I had participated in a triathlon and didn't do very well. I had been dating someone and learned that I wasn't very high on his priority list, and that felt like I wasn't good enough. And then I show up to a meeting and had to report out that I wasn't delivering on the things that I needed to get done. I was behind. And it was awful. And the things I was saying internally were terrible. Like I wasn't good enough, and I'll never measure up, and how could I be important? And oh my gosh, it was awful. And reading that, several years later, put some sense to all of those thoughts. I was in a shame storm for real. And, like I said, she just puts some sense to the things that we experience. She says that we all experience shame to one degree or another. And if we don't, then we're sociopaths. And yeah, so we might as well just admit it, which I love that, because no one's going to admit that they're a sociopath. So just come clean that you experience shame too. So she makes some sense of that, and that's very, very helpful. Like I said, it's foundational. Now, if we go ahead in the book, we get to chapter 6, where Brene starts talking a lot about workplace and leadership and how that requires vulnerability too. Now, some books out there, you can jump around. You can go from chapter 10 to chapter 2, but this is not one of those books. So while I say fast forward to chapter 6, I don't literally mean that. You need to read the first 5 chapters to make sense of chapter 6. Chapter 6 is sort of the heart of what we talk about on this channel. That's why I'm emphasizing it here. One thing that Brene says is that we need to rehumanize the workplace, and I couldn't agree more. I think that if you watch this channel and you watch regularly, you probably agree as well. The challenge is that when we rehumanize, it makes us go into those dark corners, and it feels really scary. And for some of us who have backgrounds in HR, compliance, legal, it feels even more risky because what? I don't want to go into those crazy, dark, risky areas and find myself in a lawsuit. So we can't necessarily blame people for not wanting to go there, but it's a requirement if we want to have the relationships, we want to have the innovation that is necessary in today's workplace. Brene says that it won't be hard for you to spot a workplace that is shame-ridden, that you'll find things like blame and gossip, humiliation, harassment. And she says that shame, it starts at the top. And we talk about this a lot on the channel, that really everything starts at the top and it rolls down. She says that shame can only rise so far in any system before people disengage to protect themselves. When we're disengaged, we don't show up, we don't contribute, and we stop caring. What this really looks like are those people who are actively disengaged, and it also looks like turnover. Sometimes from really great and talented people who just feel like they need to armor up and protect themselves. What Brene encourages is honest feedback, making an effort to see where the shame exists. And so that means going into those dark corners, having tough conversations. She also encourages normalizing struggle and challenge. That when somebody is messing up and they're in their own shame storm, that the leader would say, it's okay, I've been there too. Think about it. If you've ever had someone normalized for you, what a relief. What Brene also encourages is that we need to train. We need to train employees on shame and guilt and how to receive feedback so that we don't find ourselves in a storm of our own. One of the biggest things that she's found in her research is that there's just a lack of feedback. Now, as a coach and someone who talks with employees and employers and teams and all of that, I gotta say, this is common in my work too. There's just a lack of feedback. People don't know how to do it. They don't have a habit of doing it. They don't want to hurt people, or they wait until it's really too much and they blow up. And that's not healthy at all. Brene encourages a strengths focus when giving feedback, and I absolutely positively agree. She also says that we need to recognize that feedback is a vulnerable process on both sides. She says, of course it's really, scary to realize that what you say might hurt someone temporarily, that they may not receive it well. And that if we can remember that when we're receiving feedback, that, this might not be comfortable for the person delivering this to me, well, then that just builds that culture. On page 204 of the book, she has an amazing feedback checklist. It's like a check yourself checklist, so that when you're sitting down to get ready to give feedback, you are in a place, you can make sure that you're in a place that it's going to be delivered better than if you aren't able to meet some of the agreements in the checklist. And she has a leadership manifesto at the end of chapter 6 that talks all about what it means to lead with courage and vulnerability. I'd read it to you, but I want you to go pick up the book. Go and check it out. Let me know what you think. The final chapter of Daring Greatly talks all about parenting, and we don't talk about parenting on this channel, but here's what I know. I know many of you are parents, and I also know that while we're happy at work, we're happy in life, the inverse is true. When you're happy in life, you're happier at work. So if you can get a little nugget, a little wisdom, some growth, some help out of this chapter on parenting, please, by all means, that's even better. That wraps up my book review for Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I hope that you found the information helpful and you are inspired to go get the book. Remember, being happy at work requires action. And in this case, maybe even daring action. Daring greatly to be vulnerable in how you show up at work. Thank you so much for watching. Before you log off, remember to check and make sure that you're subscribed so that you can get those weekly videos and you'll never miss out. I appreciate your time and I will see you